first you got all these guys, UFC fighters now wanting to get into boxing. I mean, it's crazy. Francis Ngannou was the next wonder boy of boxing until he got KO'd by Joshua. Now it's like, what's next? You might as well give up boxing. I mean, UFC fighters are not boxers. And all of you that want to see this stuff take place and really think that UFC fighters are going to go in there in boxing and beat professional boxers, because it's not going to happen, because the skills are limited. There's no takedowns. There's no clinch. As soon as you touch each other, the ref breaks you up. It's not like a real fight. It's boxing. In a real fight, if someone clinches you up, hey, there's no one there to say, time, break you all up. It's not going to happen. So UFC fighters are at a clear disadvantage because their skills are thrown out the window. And now they're just limited to striking. And Francis Ngannou can strike, but he can't box. You know, he can catch you once, then dive in for the takedown, take you down and ground and pound you till the fight's over. You can't do that in boxing. And in boxing, if you get in trouble and you can't tie up, you're in trouble. In the UFC, if you get in trouble that way, in the boxing or the striking, you can dive in for the takedown, land a takedown, and give yourself some time to breathe. So these are the problems that UFC fighters are facing in the boxing world. It's just a major, major problem that they're not going to get past. They're real fighters. You know, growing up, we didn't know how fake boxing was. Now we know it's fake. The moment that two fighters are separated, it's fake. The only way boxing is not fake is that the fight starts and one guy KOs the other guy before there's any tie-ups, anything like that. But you're still taking away the takedown defense, takedown ability, all that stuff. All that stuff is out the window. It's just a completely different fight. And UFC fighters don't have a chance. So their best, and you see Jake Paul's beating them all. Their best look or best shot is what Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal are doing. And they're doing it because they're probably going to make more money than they would in a UFC fight. I haven't seen the figures. I don't know that for a fact, but that's the general direction. 1 or 2 fights and you're paid for life basically in boxing. And boxing's always been that way. No one knows who the undercard is or these fighters on the undercard. We only know the main event. In the UFC, we know all the fighters, so the money is spread out a little differently. And they're under contract regardless if they're like in the main event or whatever it may be. They might get some pay-per-view points or money on the back end, things like that. If they're the main event, maybe the co-main. But for the most part, they're under contract for a series of fights. In boxing, they have to pay the headliners good money because that's the only reason people are going to watch. And then they got to drag it out for an hour and a half, 2 hours before the main event starts, because this is the only time they're really getting real views. So, of course, these guys are going to make more money than in a UFC setting, and you can't blame them. But if they're going to boxing to make it a career, they're going to be quickly mistaken, as Francis Ngannou was. Now, you got Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fighting. This is the craziest thing I've ever seen, like a 20-something-year-old. Not sure exactly how old Jake Paul is. I guess I could look it up, but Mike Tyson's in his 50s, I believe, and it's just not even a fair fight. I'm already hearing people saying, man, Tyson's going to KO him. That's always possible. I mean, it's Tyson. But the reality is, if you saw the Roy Jones Jr. fight, it was so sloppy. They tied up 100 times. That's not going to happen. Jake Paul's going to be able to keep the distance, pick them apart. He's going to be quicker. He's younger. He's not nearly as good of a fighter as Tyson was, obviously, but that was when Tyson was 18 to 25 in his prime. It's not the same Tyson. Now, will they have him filled with adrenaline? Whatever he's got to do to give himself a chance, I'm sure. Will he be crazy and wild? Yes. It will be better than the Roy Jones fight because there's a certain level of respect there. Like, they're trying to win the fight, but they're also trying not to KO each other to some degree. It's like it's a fight, but it's not a real fight. This is a real fight, so Tyson's going to come in like an animal, and he's probably going to look good for a few rounds, but he's going to quickly get tired.
He's gonna fight, wait, he's gonna fight, wait, hold your breath till the end of the night. Last fighter call, UFC at its height, yeah. Bringing that thunder with all his might, saying step up, wanna fight, hold up, think twice. Gladiator, assassin, reckless, no abandon. Walk through that cage, he'll leave your ass stranded. Wake up, hey, where you at? Hey, got hit in the head with a baseball bat.